All right, we're recording. Okay. Do you remember back in the days when, hi, Pepper, dog here. What up? All right. Do you remember back in the days when YouTube was like a video forum and you could make like responses to people? Anyways, that's what I'm doing today. So I saw a video a while back. It was just a short, by, um, Mitch Varn, I believe is his name. Um, And he's somebody that I have been subscribed to since the very beginning of YouTube. And it's interesting. So he made a video about like lithium and basically he wouldn't recommend anybody be on lithium and he got a false diagnosis of bipolar and I'm 36 now, slowly approaching 40. And I believe Mitch has like 10 years on me at least. So it's funny because throughout time I've noticed, and I've been a big advocate and very open about my mental health issues. And these days I'm kind of feeling what he's saying. Like back in the day, I would have been like, no, keep taking your medication. And it's such a thing that, people do encourage you to take your meds if you're mentally ill, but then we think about and don't realize the harm that that can do. So I'm 36. I'm working on getting on the lowest medication possible, if not no medication at all, because I was diagnosed at one point with schizoaffective, and now at 36, I'm realizing as well that that may have been a false diagnosis. And I've been very inspired by other people who have diagnoses of schizophrenia who are trying to be off of medication and just making adjustments to their daily life which manage their symptoms. But we're learning that I have more generalized anxiety than I have schizoaffective. And because I think very loudly and very deeply, what I think is hearing voices is actually like internal monologue and internal dialogue, or inner monologue, as they call it. And like I said, I think very loudly. So, yeah, this misconception of, having this internal dialogue and having that be very loud, it's not the same as people who hear auditory voices and have visual hallucinations. So my actual diagnosis at this point is just generalized anxiety, and I am on off-label prescriptions. Like right now, I'm currently taking an antipsychotic, but it's for anxiety, and I take it nightly for sleep and then as needed for anxiety. It's not, I mean, it's basically the same prescription that they would give you like Xanax, but I refuse to take benzos, so I'm taking that antipsychotic. And that's something that every doctor knows, is that every doctor that I've been to knows is that I refuse to take benzos because I don't want to go down the addiction rabbit hole. Because that is something that is in my distant family history. I had an uncle who was, or not an uncle, a grandfather who was an alcoholic, and that is an addict. And so now that I know that that's in my history, even a distant history, I don't want to have anything to do with benzos or anything that I could potentially be addicted to. Dependence is a little different than addiction. And yeah, so back to the original topic. Yeah, I mean, your diagnoses, especially when you're a very anxious person and you have a doctor asking you, are you hearing voices? At my point, I'm thinking, well, I better not risk it. And I better tell him, yes, because I don't know what that means. And like over time and a lot of learning and having good doctors and bad doctors, you learn like the truth of the matter. And like Me and my current doctor think that I've just been horribly misdiagnosed over these years and put on the wrong medications, higher doses of medications that I need. So, my very first psychiatrist outside of my teens, like in my adult life, did not think that I was bipolar. But I, at that time, was under the impression, dog barking, I, at that time, was under the impression that because I had a family history of this, there was no way I didn't have it. And that was my biggest fear at that point in time, was becoming like the parent that I had in that moment. And so it's interesting to me that Mitch would say this about not recommending being on lithium, because the differences between being on medication and not, it's wild, the differences. And I notice with just like I've just been put back on a medication of an antipsychotic called olanzapine. I believe the brand name is Zyprexa, but I've only been on that 5 milligrams per week. I was weaned off of it for months, but I am so stinking tired as a result, so fatigued. And so the issue with being on these medications again is realizing that, oh yeah, my POTS has gotten worse, like significantly worse in like the last 4 days. Uh, but that has got to be a side effect of that medication making it worse. And so it's kind of a pick and choose. Do you want to have really bad generalized anxiety, where you fear everything, or do you want to have these symptoms that are mimicking like an autoimmune disorder, like MS or whatever, like constant fatigue and bad POTS? So it's like pick your poison, at least for me at this moment. But in the past 3 years, the realization that I am not bipolar and I am not schizophrenic, and being very open and honest. So this doctor basically said, in all of these months of me not being on this antipsychotic, because I was on it at the highest dose. And she said, well, these aren't medications that are jokes. These are real medications for real intense conditions. And so I had explained to her, well, I tell the doctors that if I think I might potentially be hearing voices, I just tell them that I am. And she's like, oh, she's starting to put things together and piece things together. And she goes, well, that's problematic for a doctor diagnosing. So that's where I'm at. And, like Mitch, if you happen to see this, NX2 Override, yeah, that's your username. If you happen to see this, I'm falling in your category. But it's funny because 3, 4 years ago, I would have been on that like straight and narrow path. We keep taking our medication, we keep getting better, but then you don't realize that your quality of life is really struggling. So for me to go through and explain everything that has happened over the past 3, 4 years, what ended up happening to me was that I got a really bad doctor who was not willing to compromise with me over weaning me down to my lowest doses. It was, you must be on this medication at this dose. And it was really frustrating to me because I was having significant symptoms, side effects, and he was writing them in my chart, but not doing anything about it. And we got to the point where my physical health, not mental health, physical health was being compromised. I was on lithium at a 900 milligram dose, suffering from the tremors, and on top of that, having my thyroid was being affected. And I've never had thyroid problems my entire life. And then they want to put me on another medication to treat that condition, when really, if you just took me off the lithium or even just lowered it, the problem would solve itself. But just the unwillingness to change things was just a big problem for me. So I ended up being hospitalized to get medication sorted out, and they took me off lithium completely and put me on a medication for a seizure disorder, which we did learn that I am an epileptic. And if you know anything about epilepsy and coming out of a seizure, then you know that prior to and after having a seizure, you are a lot, you seem a lot like a psychotic person, let me put it that way. So epilepsy plays into this as well. And long story short, my mood stabilizer medication I'm also taking for anxiety. So I'm on 3 different medications just for anxiety. And even all of those don't quite quench the anxiety. But I'm doing good. We're still working on weaning down to the lowest dose possible and finding other ways to manage anxiety. Um, and I'm getting there slowly, and then there's a little bit of reliance on medication. So on my end, it's not like I must absolutely not be on medication, because the medications do certainly um, help with the anxiety. Dog is distracting me. Um, they do certainly help with the anxiety, but it's quite the journey. Um, Anyways, I'll end this video here. But yeah, I'd been wanting to make a response to that video that he made for a couple of years now, and I never did, because YouTube is such a different place than what it used to be. And I feel very helpless on YouTube. But then I see people too, like NX2 Override, for instance, Mitch, who has continued to make videos even through all of this change. And I'm like, well, I should probably just make video. So with that being said, thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one, whenever that may be. And thank you for listening if I didn't already say it. Um, I think I did.